Support WrestleTalk!
It's time for another weekly missed news video, and I'm not going to talk about anyone's broken ass this time. We're going to leave that joke behind. No one has broken their ass. I'm Adam, and here are 10 news stories from this week that you might have missed. Number 1, more WWE releases soon. Jesus wept, though. We haven't had to talk about WWE releases for a little while, until last week when WWE brushed the dust off their old budget cuts excuse and let go another 10 people from their NXT roster. Some of the names that were let go made a bit of sense from WWE's perspective. They were wrestlers from the old age of NXT, such as Malcolm Bivens, Dakota Kai, and Dexter Lumis, though all three of them were prominently featured on weekly TV on the 2.0 shows, while some of the other names released were under 30 years old and had little to no independent wrestling on their resume, so what gives? Well, according to Dave Meltzer on Sunday night's main event podcast, it seems that NXT releases in particular might be becoming a lot more regular going forward. In one particular case, that being Haaland, former Parker Boudreaux, as reported by Fightful, he wasn't progressing fast enough in the ring from what WWE were expecting. And now Big Meltz has added to that to say if you don't make progress there, they're going to get rid of you, adding that he expects there to be 90-day cycles where more people are brought in and others are released. It seems a very corporate strategy, and whether it'll actually amount to them creating successful sports entertainers or not remains to be seen, considering that wrestling is a bit of an art form and people pick things up at different rates. One could potentially say this is a bit of a short-sighted view of things, but who am I to criticize WWE? Number 2, Deonna Purrazzo didn't like anything about the WWE system. On Dynamite this week, Deonna Purrazzo put her Ring of Honor women's title on the line against interim champion Mercedes Martinez in the main event of the show, no less. Purrazzo ended up losing her title in the bout, but prior to that match, she spoke on Busted Open Radio about her time in WWE, where she worked from 2018 to 2020, having only 16 televised matches in that time, and ended up having to pull out of All In because of her then new WWE contract. I think dreams change. I think as we get older and experience more things, like my dream was always to wrestle at WrestleMania and be, at the time, the Divas champion. That's all I knew in wrestling growing up, so that was my ultimate goal. Then I got there to WWE, and it was like, I don't like anything about this system. It's just not a conducive environment for me, and my dream changed. Now I just want to go somewhere that's going to appreciate me for me and give me an opportunity to wrestle and see what happens. What ended up happening after Purrazzo was released in 2020 was she went on to become one of the most respected women's independent wrestlers in North America, becoming Impact Knockouts champion and Ring of Honor women's champion. At the time of her release, WWE creative was said to think she wasn't television ready. Nice one. Number 3, Ember Moon watched AEW while in WWE. The former Ember Moon, now going by Athena, has been tearing up the independent scene since her WWE release, and many fans had speculated it would only be a matter of time before she ended up in AEW. However, there's still no sign of her joining as of yet, and Athena recently chatted with Chris Van Vliet, handsome man, who spoke to her about her creative frustrations in WWE and her views on AEW itself. I remember saying I would love to take the money, but you have given me no reason to stay. I want them to make me stay, but I was seeing everything going on in AEW, and I'm like, that looks fun. I remembered I would text Dustin from time to time to see how he was, and he would say, we sure are having fun over here. I see that, Dustin, but how are you? Number 4, Dexter Lumis' first post-WWE appearance. Hey, we're talking about releases. Still fun. One of the 10 names that was let go last week from WWE was Dexter Lumis, who has reverted back to his pre-WWE name of Samuel Shaw. Lumis was, of course, heavily featured on NXT, being part of the hugely popular Index storyline, culminating in a wedding segment that main evented the first ever NXT 2.0 over an NXT Championship Fatal 4-Way for the vacant title, lest we forget. Following his release, Samuel Shaw put up a video on social media having painted a recreation of the iconic Vince McMahon photo where he's signing his $1 billion bill, and also made sure to include his booking information. Now, we all know where we'll be seeing him next. It was announced he'll be appearing at Atomic Revolutionary Wrestling's Born in Blood event on June 24th in Melbourne, Florida. This was announced by ARW representative Alex Red, who informed Fightful that the entire event will be built around Shaw's return to the independent scene, with the name of the show even being taken from the TV series Dexter, which of course was a huge influence behind his name in WWE. Number 5, CM Punk trends. Never one to shy away from the spotlight, CM Punk was once again thrust into it, this time over his political views. For those who weren't aware, this past week the US Supreme Court have reportedly decided to overturn Roe vs. Wade, a constitutional right to have an abortion put into place in 1973. In a reaction to the news, Punk posted a throwback photo of himself wearing a pro-choice t-shirt, which then led to several idiots coming out of the woodwork to try and talk back to him, with one person asking if he was going to cry like a little bitch. Punk would respond with, a little bit, yeah, for my wife, my sisters, for mothers and women who are helplessly watching their rights over their own bodies stripped away by elite, rich, white, terrorist religious fascists. Being human means I cry when injustices masquerade as religious right. Her body, her choice. There were several more responses that Punk indulged, but the fallout of them was that they were picked up by the likes of Fox News and TMZ, and Punk even trended on Twitter for a while as well. Good for Punk. Punk stand up for what's right. Awkward segue into talking about wrestling ratings now. Number 6, worst Raw rating of the year. Yay numbers! Everyone's favourite, this past week's episode of Raw, which was the go-home for WrestleMania Backlash, by the way, ended up doing quite poorly in the ratings. In fact, the worst of the year so far. The show drew an average of 1.581 million viewers and also a 0.38 rating in the 18 to 49 demographic, which is the worst stat since the December 20th, 2021 episode of Raw. The viewership is down over 15% from the same time last year, and the 18 to 49 demo is down over 28% from the same time last year as well. That is no bueno for WWE. Numbers, everyone's favorite. Number 7, Dark Side of the Ring Season 4. For those unaware, Dark Side of the Ring is a series on Vice that covers the seedy underbelly of the wrestling world, covering the more controversial topics and things that some people would rather you not know. Recently, AEW commentator Jim Ross revealed he wouldn't be returning to Dark Side of the Ring if they were renewed for a 4th season, as he felt misrepresented by some of their editing choices, having appeared on other episodes to talk about topics such as the plane ride from hell, the brawl for all, and the deaths of Owen Hart and Chris Benoit. Dave Meltzer then mentioned on Wrestling Observer Radio that the show currently hadn't been renewed for a 4th season. I've not heard of them doing another season. The ratings were down for this season, but you still had some very good episodes in the last season. There's an endless supply of ideas that you can do. So it's just up to Vice essentially greenlighting another season, but I've not heard anything about another season. This got a response from Vice TV themselves, who said that the creators of the show are hard at work making more content for the series, saying that Vice is just as committed as ever to the series, which I'm sure will be a big relief for fans of the show. Number 8, Cody bringing the Winged Eagle back. Adrenaline in my soul. Here's some news about Cody Rhodes. Since returning to WWE at WrestleMania, Cody's mission statement has been to win the world title, which is why he's facing Seth Rollins again at WrestleMania Backlash. Makes sense to me. But with Cody's love of wrestling history and his track record of bringing back old belts, having brought back the classic Intercontinental Championship design in 2011, fans have wondered whether he could bring back another classic belt once he wins the world title. Cody spoke on the matter on After the Bell, where he said, "If the ultimate dream was to be achieved, I did do that once with the Intercontinental title, and it took a lot of work, but it was the right call once we got there. I think there is a particular design of the WWE Championship that people are very fond of. I don't even want to say it, it's 2 words, Winged Eagle. Hypothetically, it would be something. It really would be something to do that. Achieve the ultimate industry dream and be the best of the best ever, and then perhaps give it a fresh coat of paint with the Winged Eagle, the redundantly named title. That would be something." Yes, indeed it would. Number 9, Stu Grayson's status confirmed. Earlier this week, it was reported that Stu Grayson's AEW contract had expired and he would be leaving the company, as he had been removed from the AEW roster page along with Marco Stunt and Joey Janela, 2 other names who have been confirmed to not have their contracts renewed. However, this situation appears to be a little different. Fightful Select is reporting that unlike Janela, Stunt, and Jack Evans, Grayson was actually offered a new contract, but he and AEW could not agree on financials. The door is still reportedly open for a return if the 2 sides can come to an agreement at some point. And number 10, power failure in AEW. And finally this week, there was a power outage in AEW this week as they tried to tape AEW Dark Elevation. That is a bit unfortunate. According to Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio, Max Caster was wrestling Cheeseburger when the power went out. The entrance and the announcing place all of a sudden went dark, so they did the match. Max Caster won, and they did another match, which was Sky Blue and Nyla Rose. And then they said, "This match is only for you fans in the arena. It will never air," because they couldn't tape it because they had a power failure. Luckily, they got it fixed by 8 p.m, and there was no problem with Dynamite. Very lucky indeed. And that's our list. What's been your favorite bit of wrestling news from this week? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to WrestleTalk for up-to-the-minute wrestling news. And never forget to jam that jam.